The remote valleys of northern Mexico are home to communities of fundamentalist Mormons who fled the United States generations ago to escape what they saw as religious oppression. But now they're caught in the middle of Mexico's brutal drug wars. Distressing images now on BBC World News as Ana Gabriela Rojas reports.
La Mora is a paradise. That's how I always felt. It was like we were safe.
The soil here, the mountain, they kind of claim us, you know? It's like no other place is this place.
More than 100 years ago, fundamentalist Mormons crossed the border from the U.S. to the rural valleys of northern Mexico to practice their religion freely.
They came to Mexico, and Mexico actually opened their arms and gave them asylum. And that's why we came here, kind of get away from it all, and nobody's ever bothered us. We've tried to mind our own business. It's been peaceful until this tragedy happened. And now it's just turned our world upside down, and I don't think it'll ever be the same again.
When American Mormons first settled in the Mexican desert, the village of La Mora was nothing but a bend in the river. Kenny is part of the extended Langford family, the founders of this community.
Nothing, no houses all the way up and down this valley. As time went by, we just, families grew, we built more and more houses. But I think there's about, 35 houses here approximately.
Polygamous marriages, where one man had 2 or more wives, were once common in the Mormon church. But after the practice was banned, many of those who wanted to continue living that way moved to Mexico, where it was tolerated. They mainly settled in the northern states, close to the U.S. border.
As long as he has his bottle, he's fine. Yeah.
Jenny Langford came here in 1972.
I was born in Cardiff, South Wales. I left there when I was 23, married my husband, and then we moved here to Mexico 6 months after we were married. I didn't dream in a million years I'd end up in Mexico, but I've always loved it here. I really have. I would never want to live anywhere else. I wouldn't even want to go back to Britain, actually. I love it here. Polygamy was a part of the early day church. They did away with it at the end of the 1800s. But we believe that God is the same today as he was yesterday, and he will be forever. And so if it was right back then, why wouldn't it be right now?
Many people here make their living off the land, farming pecans and other crops.
We want our kids to experience, do their own gardening, milk the cows, take care of animals, and just have that type of a life.
I was 8 or 9 when I started milking cows. I'm like 13 now. I'm an American citizen, but I consider myself a Mexican, yeah. We're free. We can do whatever we want here. There's no policing or nothing.
Almost everyone here holds dual U.S.-Mexican citizenship and speaks both English and Spanish, but they feel Mexico is home. Jenny had 9 children here with her husband Dan, who passed away in 2019.
My granddaughter, Brianna, is having her first child, and we always have a baby shower for the first baby, and usually the 12th. We love children, and we believe it's a part of our religion too. We believe that, when God said, multiply the earth, we took him literally. We strongly believe that children are sacred, that we agreed in the life before this one that we would be the parents of the children that we have. We believe they chose us and we chose them.
6 hours drive away from La Mora lies another fundamentalist Mormon settlement, Colonia Lebaron. The two communities are linked through marriage. Julian Lebaron is the leader of the Lebaron clan.
My father had 52 children. I think it's the most beautiful thing that could ever happen to someone, because we have just a beautiful relationship. Now it's kind of a thing that's embarrassing to Mormons, that, you know, that this idea that they came from leaders that had multiple wives and many children. But there's no shame in it for us.
Not everybody here lives polygamously, but it's still common, especially among the older generation.
When Amelia and her family showed up, her mom and dad were polygamists. I'd never met them before, but the moment I met them, I knew that Amelia would be Dan's wife one day. I believed in it, and I prayed about it, and I felt right about it, and so Dan and Amelia were married.
Jenny and I raised our families together. Our kids, they grew up in the same home together. They fought like cats and dogs, but they loved each other with an intensity that you don't see very many other families have.
We lived together for 35 years. Her children were my children were her children. It was a beautiful life, very beautiful. If ever I wanted to go on a trip, Amelia was here with the children, and vice versa. When she needed to go somewhere, I took care of her children. She taught the children piano, and, you know, it was just lovely. It was what I couldn't give him, she did, and vice versa. So it worked. It worked for us. It really did.
Amelia's daughter, Cristina, married a man from Colonia LeBaron, and they had 6 children together.
Cristina, she was a fireball. If you understand that one. She had her dad's temper. She reacted instantly to everything. And she could fight with somebody instantly and just as furious, but then a minute later, she was completely repentant and fixing it.
The families often made the journey between the two communities on roads also used by Mexico's powerful criminal cartels.
We were in my house, and everybody that was left on the farm gathered to say goodbye. And we talked about it, about how stupid we are as women traveling these roads alone and with our kids. And Cristina laughed, and she's like, well, I'm not afraid of anything. I'm not afraid. You know, she says, I'm a little bit, but why should I be? If there's a bunch of us going together, I won't be alone.
On November 4th, 2019, a convoy of 3 Chevrolet Suburban SUVs set off from La Mora to LeBaron. Cristina, with her baby Faith, were among them.
The road between the two communities is long and difficult. We haven't seen anyone around. If you get stuck, it's no one to help. It's desert all around.
Also in the convoy was Ronita Miller, Kenny's daughter-in-law, with 4 of her children.
Still want to wake up and it never happened.
The very first message we got was from my brother-in-law, and it said, please family, pray for me, pray this isn't real, that this isn't really happening. Nina's Suburban is on fire and all filled with bullets.
So we were hoping that they had gotten out or something. That's what we were hoping.
Like, nobody would do that to babies. Like, nobody would do that to a woman of 4 children.
When we finally came in, that's when we realized that they were in the Suburban. They didn't get out.
This is for the record. Nita and 4 of my grandchildren are burnt and shot up. I never thought it'd be a blessing to have a body to say goodbye to, and we didn't get that here. They burn them completely beyond, and there's just hardly anything left.
Ronita and 4 of her children died. Another family member, Donna Langford, and 2 of her children were also murdered. Cristina Langford was killed. but her 7-month-old baby, Faith, survived.
I thought at first that they'd probably burned all of the vehicles and that everybody was dead. And there were bullet holes in her car seat. But when we found out that the baby was alive, it was a whole new level of just rejoicing. It was a relief.
There had been a firefight between rival cartels the previous night in the nearby city of Agua Prieta, in which 2 people had died. One of the main lines of investigation is that the blacked out SUVs could have been mistaken for a convoy from another cartel, and that's why they were attacked. They call this area Tierra Sin Ley, a lawless land. The communities here have lived with the threat of organized crime for years.
When you have cartels fighting each other for position or for the routes, and we, I guess, just happened to be in the middle of a remote one. We've gotten more and more accustomed because that's the way of life in Mexico. The cartels pretty much run the show.
In 2009, Julian's brother, Benjamin, and his brother-in-law, Luis, were killed in Colonia Lebaron. Benjamin was known for speaking out against cartel violence.
So this is my brother Benjamin's home, and you can still see the damage on the door of when they broke in. Anyways, they go in and they hauled off with him and Luis and drove, about 4 kilometers down the road, and they knelt them down and they shot them 4 times each in the back of the head. We became organized and we told the government, hey, if you don't have the tools and you don't send the people to protect us, we're going to demand the means and the right to defend ourselves. For that crime, we have never had justice. In fact, most crimes in Mexico never see justice, like 99% of them.
The attack on the convoy of women and children has caused outrage in Mexico, where on average 94 people are killed every day. The drug wars have fueled much of that violence.
Por eso me espanta que ya el gobierno ya ni siquiera nos pueda proteger a nuestros bebés, a nuestros niños. Por eso me espanta.
Dejaron a niños enfermos, ya me voy, a niños heridos que caminaron, o sea, es una injusticia.
No están solos, no están solos. Many members of the family have come down to Mexico City to join in this march to demand justice.
Julian has called for the U.S. to classify the cartels as terrorist organizations, and President Donald Trump weighed in on the debate. But many feel that might lead to U.S. boots on the ground in Mexico.
We have to have justice and we have to have freedom. We need help for that.
You've been criticized for asking help for the U.S. What would you say regarding that?
Well, for help from the world, not just you, the whole world.
Ella es mi hija Adriana, dile tú, mija.
Yes, the whole world needs to help us. The whole world. They burned my sister and her babies. It's more than politics.
But not everyone from the Mormon community agrees that help from the U.S. is the answer.
When the United States comes in to do war somewhere, there's always going to be a devastation. I would rather the United States stayed where they're at and let Mexico take care of its problems, and if they can't, then God will have to.
Mexico's president has strongly condemned the attack and has met the family several times to update them on the investigation. Security patrols in the area have been stepped up. But shortly after this protest, Julian was forced to leave Mexico after receiving death threats. It is thought they came from the cartels.
There's a lot of fear of retaliation because we're searching for justice and we're searching for change. And so there's fear. I mean, the cartels are so strong in these areas, so strong, that honestly everybody's scared to death.
was where a lot of the activity was.
Only a handful of people remain in La Mora. Most have left for the US and are unsure if they'll ever return. But not Jenny.
So you will stay here?
Oh, yes, absolutely. My husband's buried here. My granddaughter, my roots are here now. I don't plan on going anywhere. That's Christina's house. That's where she lived for the last, probably close to a year before she left, before she was killed. Life has to go on, huh?
You think somehow fate also help you as a family?
Oh, absolutely. I can't imagine not having a faith and not believing in God. I feel bad for people that don't have a faith because times like this, it's just comforting to know that, and I feel at peace knowing that where they've gone, I believe it with all my heart. So that's a comfort, but you still miss them. You can't help but miss them.